I'm bored. Ugh. God, if only there was an easier way to change to the next game. Oh ho! What is this? GBA SP Game Changer. Switch games without removing cartridges. Where's this been all my life? Nintendo worked tirelessly to make this beautiful, small, little form factor Game Boy with a wonderful little front light, which was kind of bad, but still, the portability factor of it is absolutely exceptional. So this company has come along and completely ruined that. Welcome to the Game Changer by Gamester. And yeah, I actually had one of these as a kid. I thought it was rather cool, if I'm honest with you. But now that I'm older, I sort of want to have another look at it and reevaluate that opinion. Because I don't think this is quite as good as I remember, if I'm honest with you. So the idea of this is it's like a CD changer for your GBA SP. Way cool. The unfairadvantage.com. What is that? I bet that website's still going. Made in China, obviously. Grips for comfort and control. Change games with the flick of a switch. Wait, with the flip of a switch. Is that the right expression? Store up to 3 games. Brilliant. But what if you had a GBA EverDrive? And then you can absolutely defeat the system. So, yeah, I mean, it just says stores and switches 3 games, and it's got an extra grip for your added control and comfort. And you've got a little graphic down there of the 3 games all going in, which is nice. So just, yeah, that's literally it. There is no capital letters anywhere, which is sort of a little bit concerning. So without any further ado, let's open it. I paid £15 for it, which I don't think is too bad of a price to pay for the Game Changer. Because it's going to add a lot of comfort, and who doesn't like being comforted? So, here we go. Let's pull it out. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Still sort of got the packaging there, which will look very nice in my bin. So here it is, and wow, yup, that is very, very cheap plastic. Good grief. That is, yeah, that's not going to survive any drops. But, you know what? The sort of matte finish on it and the sort of rough, grippy texture to it makes it look somewhat higher quality. So that's funny. On the back it says Radica Gamester. So obviously there was some sort of other company being involved with this, and it's trademarked for 2003. So yeah, as I said, I did get this once. I think it was for a Christmas present or a birthday present by one of my friends' mums. Obviously they paid for it, but one of my friends. And I remember it being cool, as I said. So I'm really excited to see if it's quite as cool as I remember. So the premise is very simple. You take your Game Boy. Wait, what is this cheapo AGS 101 NES crap? I got a much better idea. Hello. So yeah, this is actually my working prototype of the dual screen Game Boy Advance SP. We're going to have a revision to this, which is going to be a kit which will be available to buy, but only in a very limited quantity. So let's take a look then. You plug it in like that, and that is literally it. And then presumably when you... Oh, it's got a pass-through switch. So that's quite nice. That works fairly well. A little bit harder to press. But yeah, no complaints there. That is turning on every time. The LEDs aren't really obstructed in any way, but they have got a sort of a flute for them just to make sure that they're still sticking out. Your shoulder buttons are pretty accessible. You've got a big groove cutout right there. Volume slider is probably easier to adjust when you had smaller hands as a kid, but it's relatively accessible. It's a bit annoying because you probably slide it like that, but now you can't. You have to sort of go with the tip of your nail or something, but hey ho, still works. Everything else is obviously completely accessible besides the battery. So yeah, fairly good stuff so far. So let's take some games then and plug them in. So we'll start off with slot 1. Ooh, that was a bit rough, but it is aftermarket-y stuff, so I'm sure it's that's normal, and it's probably because it's also brand new. Second one goes in, and the last one, nice and flush. Oh, hang on. Oh, so as if this wasn't unwieldy enough. Okay, ignore the fact it's got an extra screen. This doesn't even go all the way down. So that's really, really nice. But let's see what happens then. So we'll leave it on 1 on the side. So you've got a switch on the side to choose between the 3 different games, and we'll power it on. And there we go. That is going to work quite nicely. Lovely. So it's a multi-cart. So actually that looks quite funny. It's just a really long list. But unfortunately it's just a repeat of the top screen and the bottom screen. They're both the same thing, obviously. So let's turn it off, and then we'll flick to cart 2. And there we go. We are on the second cartridge. That has worked very nicely. And finally we shall flip it down to number 3. Like that, and turn it on. And yes, that is also looking like everything's perfect. Yep, absolutely excellent. Okay, now, question. What happens when we flick the switch when the game's on? Ah, you can't. Very clever. Okay, next question. What happens when we pull out the cartridge when it's on? The wrong one. Okay, that's alright. Now what happens when we do the one that's actually in? I caught a Pokemon. No, I think that's what happens anyway when you pull out a Game Boy cartridge. I don't think there's anything unusual going on there. Still works absolutely perfectly. Okay, right. Well, let's talk about the obvious. Unfortunately, it works very seamlessly, so we can't take the piss out of it. But it has increased the form factor of the Game Boy somewhat. We now have a big chunky thing going on, and it will do the pocket test. Here we go. So without the Gamester Game Changer, in we go. That's okay. And then with the Gamester Game Changer, yeah. Oh shit. Well, in terms of the grip, I've got quite large hands, so I do feel like I can give quite an honest opinion on this, and a valid opinion. You know what? It hasn't, I mean, yeah, okay, you do have a bit more meat to it to grab onto, and that is fair enough, and your hands are resting a bit further away. My thumbs are longer than they are, they're longer than when, they're longer than they were when I was a kid, so yeah, okay, that is actually relatively comfortable. I'm sort of wanting to press shoulder buttons here, which is a bit of a shame, because obviously I'm having to like put an unusual arc in my hand to get that up there, but besides that, it's fairly decent. You know what, like, it does work very nicely. It just seems really pointless to me. Obviously, this probably would have been quite more expensive than just a regular Game Boy grip back in the day, because, well, obviously it's got some sort of technology going on inside, and we will open it up, of course, but the whole premise of changing your games just doesn't seem like such a big deal to me. Like, why can't you just do that? It doesn't really seem like it's that difficult to do. So quite what the purpose of that? I mean, this is still a smaller form factor than that. So I don't quite know if there was really a massive market for this. One thing I do also want to try is, will it play a DMG game? Because obviously that's going to look quite funny sticking out the top there. So let's shove that in. Oh, okay. That has fit perfectly well. Right, oh, there's a game in there, hang on. Okay, so let's switch it to number 2 and turn it on. And no, that has not worked. And I know why, actually, I know why. It's because, it probably would work, but it's because this Game Boy has a switch inside of it that is activated when this is plugged in. So, yeah, as you can see there's sort of like little notches which would stop the switch from being pressed, whereas on this there isn't. So when this one goes in, it switches that little switch and turns it into the Game Boy, original Game Boy and Game Boy Color mode. So that's why that's not going to work, but I'm sure if you were to glue that in or jam it down, you could then play your Game Boy games. But Now we've got another problem introduced. We either have one game in here and then 3 games, and that is still a smaller form factor, kind of, I mean, if you were to do that, than this. So if you don't have any DMG games, it probably wasn't a problem. But that's enough waffle. Let's open it up and see what's inside. So I'm expecting there to be some sort of little motherboard going on. Obviously, it's going to have the traces going from each cartridge connector to the one that actually plugs into the Game Boy itself. Oh, that can't quite reach. But whether or not it's going to be any more advanced than that, I don't know. Okay. Oh, blimey, that is, yeah, that's a little bit interesting. Okay, so here we go. First things first, let's take a look at the mechanism which prevents you from changing the game when it's on. And it's very, very simple. I mean, I don't know how long that's going to last. Essentially, in this power switch, there's a little pole which comes out of this plastic piece in here that moves around. So when you switch this, you can see there's a plastic bit moving backwards and forwards. And on the end of that pole is a pin. And then there's 3 holes on the game cartridge 1, 2, and 3 slot. And it basically just goes into the hole on cartridge 1, and then you can't adjust it, and then the pin comes out, change it to cartridge 2, and it goes in. So I mean, it's a very clever, simple workaround to preventing you from adjusting that. But obviously, if you were to cut that little pole off and then change the game, it's going to essentially act as if the game was removed, because the Game Boy is not going to be able to deal with 2 different signals going into it. Maybe you can see the poles down there. You can sort of see it. Yeah, you can. You can see that. So they just stab in to the side of the switch. Boom. Okay, so it does look like there's 2, maybe just to add a bit more sort of strength to it. But aside from that, it's exactly what I expected. It's a bunch of traces which are determined by the switch on the side going to multiple different cartridge slots. So yeah, I mean, it's very simple stuff. It's exactly what I expected. It's pretty low quality, sort of reminiscent of the sort of stuff you just get on AliExpress. They've used hot glue, and there's still loads of like sort of flux and whatnot just littered around on the motherboard. But you know what? It's a pretty cool thing. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section down below. It's just, I mean, it's just if you had the money and you had big hands when you were 5 years old. Nah, no, no, no.